Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to another episode of LunarCrush Live. I'm excited today to have Brandon Green from the Bitcoin Conference. Bitcoin 2024 is coming up here in Nashville at the end of July. If you don't have your tickets, make sure you get on top of that. It's going to be an epic one. Me personally, Nashville, middle of the summer, cowboy boots, man, I cannot wait to get on the streets and hang out and have some fun. Wanted to show you some fun stuff before Brandon comes up on stage here. We did add conferences and events to LunarCrush just recently. And so actually what you're looking at here is for Bitcoin 2024, you're looking at the number of social media interactions about the conference over time. And so, what you can kind of see here is you got to get on it, folks. Like, things are starting to pick up here. And when you look at this chart, this is a 3-month chart. When you look at this chart another month from now, I bet we're going to be seeing a couple 100,000 interactions a day across social media. So things are heating up. The conference is going to be amazing. And, I'm going to bring Brandon up here and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to have some fun and learn about everything Bitcoin 2024. So without further ado, Brandon, my man, how's it going? Welcome to the show. What's up?
It's going great. That chart right there, the spike, I feel that.
Yeah, man, you got to be buying. We got to be buying.
Yeah, no, it's been a really big week so far. It was a big week last week, and I'm really feeling the attention and focus and excitement around the event right now. It's truly coming together in a pretty crazy way.
I love that. And so I'm going to start with an easy question. It's Bitcoin, is now almost 15 years old. And I wouldn't even call it like a currency. I'd call it more like a movement, like the sovereign individual that's out there, like adopting this. And there's only, at this point, there's countries that are adopting Bitcoin, earlier this year. Now we've got the Wall Street buy-in with Bitcoin, and you're operating and running the number one, and I would say most famous and most important conference for that asset, that movement in the world. So that's an easy question. What's your day-to-day like? How does that feel to be operating and responsible for all of that? The one place where we all get together to come hang out.
Yeah, no, I mean, what's the day-to-day like? First of all, it's hectic. I mean, we've got a pretty big team. Maybe, hard to say whether it's bigger than people would expect or smaller than people would expect at this point. But, there's about 40 of us who are focused on making the conference a success. And, of course, that goes across. We have 4 conferences this year on 4 continents, really trying to bring the Bitcoin movement, like you said, global. And so, we don't just execute on the Nashville event, but certainly the Nashville event is the major focus of the team. And it's exciting. I mean, I do feel, and I understand kind of the weight that, people look to us to make sure that we are successful in bringing the industry together and creating the biggest microphone possible for Bitcoin. And we take that job seriously. We have fun with it, but we take it seriously to not just bring everyone together for the sake of bringing everyone together, but truly to use the platform, use the momentum from everyone being there to push Bitcoin and the industry forward in every way possible. So hopefully, we do everyone proud with that. But there's, we work on it every year. There's always improvements. There's always things to do. And certainly this year, we're planning to really push Bitcoin forward as well. So lots of surprises in store, I think.
That's what I love about what you guys do, because I feel like every year there's always kind of something big that's announced, and it's kind of like an inflection point for the industry. I remember a couple years back when El Salvador like kind of announced that they were gonna kind of adopt Bitcoin, and I remember just like the murmurs the night before at a lot of the parties. People like, oh, what's going on? And then someone's like, what's gonna happen? I was like, I bet a country is gonna like adopt Bitcoin tomorrow, and like lo and behold, so I was 1 for 1 on the hit list there. But yeah, I love that you guys do that. And, I don't know if there's any alpha you can kind of leak to us here about surprises or directions or, start some crazy stories. But is there anything you can lead us with?
Well, I mean, there's definitely rumors swirling around some surprises we may have in store this year. Can neither confirm nor deny them right now, except to say that we hear them and we see them, and we're working our butts off to make everyone proud. Uh, the We've actually gotten a few different inbound opportunities over, especially the past like month and a half. That if any one of them comes through, it will be a bouquet moment, I think, and multiple of them may come through. So,
Wow.
I can't say anything more than that right now. In the same way that back in 2021, I was myself, JC from the team, and a couple others. We were just like giddy and like couldn't believe that we couldn't tell anyone about what was being planned for the event. But like we knew what was going on only about, let's say, a week in advance
Wow.
of the Bitcoin 2021 event. It's like when it all came together. And it was Jack Mallers who sent us a message and was just like, "Hey, I need 30 minutes on the main stage." And we were like, "We're a week out from the event. Like, you're not getting
You
30
better
minutes on
have something
the stage."
good.
Yeah. And he was like, "I know. But trust me, like, we have to do this. You have to find me 30 minutes on the main stage." And we were like, I mean, okay, let's figure out what we can do here. And then, he kind of the next day he like called us up and told us exactly what was going on. And we were like, holy cow. And so, that's kind of how it goes. The beauty of the event is like, when you do have all that momentum, when you do have everyone there, when the entire industry turns its focus on kind of a 3-day stretch, it opens so many doors for you to try and make things happen for the industry and for Bitcoin. And yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised at like the number of people. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but you'd be surprised at the number of people who view the value of the microphone that we hold, and truly see the opportunity to come speak to the Bitcoiners. And dude, the Bitcoiners are a movement now that you cannot ignore anymore. Like we used to be a nice little fringe industry, let's say, out there. Maybe there's a million or so kind of folks that are actively engaged in Bitcoin around the world. We're way bigger than that now. I mean, we're on another level, and so to be able to really rally the industry and the community, we can start enacting some change all around the world that we want to see, and that's super exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, do you feel the responsibility? I mean, it's an election year, like you said, that huge microphone, like it's a pretty big inflection point from like a regulatory standpoint in the United States this year. Some presidents have come out and started to say that they're going to endorse cryptocurrencies in a new way, and Bitcoin specifically is kind of obviously like the leader. It's like no matter where you work in the industry, it's like at heart, like you have to kind of be a Bitcoiner no matter what. Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what I think got most of us into the industry, in the first place. And so, how do you feel about like this year specifically? And maybe you can also touch a little bit on why the move. Last couple of years in Miami, it's like Miami is all things Bitcoin, and it's an amazing spot, and so many people and startups are moving to Miami. What was the choice to move to Nashville for this year?
Yeah. So the first question, and sorry if you hear a car alarm in the background. This is perfect timing. But
Yeah, of course. My neighbor stopped power washing seconds ago, and now you've got the car alarm. I love it.
yeah, no, it's perfect. So the first question about like kind of holding the Bitcoin microphone in a moment like an election season, 100% that's not lost on us. And there was like we've been having conversations with all three presidential candidates. Biden, Trump, RFK. RFK is already confirmed. He's announced as a speaker. We've been talking to both the Biden campaign and the Trump campaign
Oh, wow.
about having them at the conference, right? And there's no update to share until there is one. But some of the things that we've been pointing out is that there's been polling, for instance, that 1 in 5 voters, a little more than 1 in 5 voters in swing states view crypto as a key issue by which they plan to vote in the 2024 election. You can't ignore that as a candidate.
Incredible.
It's crazy. That's 20% of the voters are thinking about the crypto policy of the candidate that they're voting for. And so, it would be a massive mistake for any candidate to have their platform be anti. That's just not a winning strategy. And so that means that there is an opening by which that we can start to build a Bitcoin platform, and the rest of crypto too. And this is probably like a good moment to really differentiate, like, what is our brand, what is our ethos here. We're not anti-crypto, okay? Bitcoin was the Bitcoin conference was born out of we want a dedicated place for Bitcoin to have its focus and its moment in the sun. And it's like, if you look at a lot of the crypto events, you look at a lot of the things happening around, certainly sponsorship dollars influence the way that conversations are built. And there is no Bitcoin, foundation. There is no, hey, we're here to kind of sponsor on behalf of Bitcoin and make sure that you guys talk about Bitcoin enough, right? And so what that meant is, for years, these crypto conferences ignored Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is, in the least favorable light, Bitcoin is 50% of the entire market, right? And that's when you include some really questionable valuations of some very illiquid assets, right? And so, realistically, Bitcoin is probably 75 to 80% of everything that happens in the crypto market. And so it's worth it to just create a platform to focus on Bitcoin. And so, where you've kind of seen maybe a political whipping up around it, right, is are we just focused on Bitcoin? Are we going to want to leverage kind of the political process to make Bitcoin win and other coins lose? And absolutely not. Bitcoin will compete with the rest of crypto on the merits of the ideas and the decentralization and the technology underlying, right? And I'm very confident that on a level playing field, Bitcoin will outcompete anything else in crypto. That's the trajectory of Bitcoin in my mind. And so really, it's about formulating policy in the United States and abroad, but certainly in the United States right now is our focus, that fosters a good environment for you to build companies in the space. And so, that's what we're pushing for. That's why we're having these conversations with all of these candidates about. And, hopefully that will be something that our conference can enable and move forward this year. So I hope that kind of helps answer that first part of the question.
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of interject, we can get to the other part here in a second, is, first off, I love where your brand sits. I love where the brand sits. Like, I love the fact that it's Bitcoin, but there are other things that are involved with that, because you just can't ignore the rest of the market that's there. But those people are also, I would say, supremely focused on Bitcoin in major ways, right? Like, we're building an analytics platform, and yes, we have cryptocurrencies. We also have musicians and the NHL, right? But it's like, we talk about Bitcoin a lot on social media. It's because that's what we love personally too. So I love where the brand sits. And then maybe just like a little insider baseball on, like, how do you reach out to like the Donald Trump campaign, or like, how did you guys kind of do that? Did they reach out to you? Like, did you send some feelers out last year? Like, how do you really kind of get on those people's radar? Is it, someone that's close to them? And then how do you kind of, I guess, court them to try and make them be a part of it? Because obviously that's a huge win to have people like that as a part of this.
Yeah. So, I couldn't tell you the specifics of how we did it, just because I don't want to publicize kind of the different relationships. But what I will say is one of the craziest, most valuable parts about Bitcoin is that Bitcoin knows no ideology. It knows no demographic information. It doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, black, white, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, like, Bitcoin doesn't care. And so what that means is that truly people from all walks of life, all political affiliations, everything are Bitcoiners.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a Bitcoiner, you want Bitcoin to succeed. And so, when once, like, it turns out that a lot of these presidential campaigns, a lot of these presidential administrations, and not just in the U.S., presidential administrations across the world, regulators, regulatory bodies, congressmen, etc., they all have Bitcoiners infiltrated into their group, let's say.
Yeah.
And so,
There's a
like,
birdie in
this
the
is
ear
the thing.
somewhere.
Exactly. And they want to champion Bitcoin. They want to be that person in the group that champions Bitcoin. And so that means that when you're a big Bitcoin brand like we are, people reach out to us being like, hey, I've got the ear of so and so. I would love to set up a conversation. And so, like, we've pressed on a few of those, and then some of them have come to us as well. But that's the power of this movement, is like, it knows no limits, it knows no bounds, and like, we are slowly taking over. And so, yeah, like, I would honestly expect, like, 2024 is not the outlier year. 2024 is the beginning. And I would expect every single election over the next, like, let's say 4 years, to have Bitcoin as part of the component of what that election is run on. And every single candidate now is going to have a Bitcoin policy platform. And some of them are going to be anti, like, some of them are going to go the authoritarian route. They're going to want to, put capital controls on their people and all, we've seen it happen. We've seen it happen in Russia. We've seen it happen in China, it will happen. But for the first time, there will be an incentive to take the other side of that, and to be the candidate that is pro Bitcoin, pro opening up people's, freedom to transact however they want. And that will come about from the people who own Bitcoin and love Bitcoin, who are wrapped into the campaigns and the processes of those, like, political elections. So it's super exciting. And that's basically how it happened, is truly, like, Bitcoiners existing in every major administration and campaign in the world, really.
Yeah.
And then, your other question about Miami. So we're the Bitcoin conference, right? And I think one of the things that we noticed more and more is that, we were being called Bitcoin Miami, which is fine. Like, it's a shortcut. Obviously, it helps explain what conference you're going to. You're going to Bitcoin Miami, right? But Bitcoin is bigger than Miami, right? Miami is an incredible city. And Mayor Suarez down there, I mean, is doing an incredible job, has done an incredible job of cultivating, like, a new tech sector in the US, and that being focused, and built around, like, the fintech world. And so there's all the reasons in the world for the Bitcoin conference to be located in Miami. But if we, stayed there, it would mean that we're truly just making Miami kind of the home for the Bitcoin conference. And we want to be able to utilize the Bitcoin conference to create more Miamis, right? And this is kind of like, I guess I'll have more stories to tell about this post-conference when everything comes out, right? But certainly we've seen a lot of success in having relocated it to Nashville, in the same way that it aligned with Mayor Suarez in Miami in terms of making Miami very Bitcoin friendly. And so, our goal now is to move the conference around and use it as, like, just another tool for Bitcoin adoption. And so, yeah, like, it's very successful in Nashville. The why Nashville component specifically, many people don't know this, but we're actually based in Nashville. I'm born and raised in Nashville. It's my home, so I'm particularly biased. But our Bitcoin Magazine headquarters are in Nashville as well. And so we wanted to show people our home. We wanted to play on our home turf a little bit. And Nashville has a lot to offer. Like you said, teeing up the show, like, it's fun. It's free. It's very American in terms of, it's kind of in the South, but it's a little less, deep South. It's like it's perfectly located. It's centrally located. Most people can drive there. This is one thing about Miami is certainly as you get closer to the event, it's hard to FOMO people in from far away because they have to get flights. You can draw a pretty big circle around Nashville of where you can drive from and where you could truly like decide last minute to come to the event. And so, like that was a very strong thing to weigh as well. And yeah, I mean, you just want to look at places where there's like some authentic kind of tie-in with what Bitcoin's all about. And I think that Nashville really does reflect that in a lot of ways. So I'm excited. I'm excited for people to come see the city. A lot of people have never been to Nashville. A lot of people are like, I don't know if I want to go to Nashville. You want to go to Nashville. You're going to be very impressed. You're going to be over the moon. And in the same way that a lot of people moved to Miami after our first year there, I think a lot of people are going to want to move to Nashville once they come and see it.
Yeah. And I mean, so many people are already moving and have been over the years. I remember visiting a while ago and people are like, there's 100 new like people moving in like a day or something to Nashville, so I know it's grown a lot over the years, but it's also kind of kept that amazing, music vibe, right? It's like every musician goes to Nashville to try and like get started before they go to LA or New York or somewhere else. It's like, so it like when you're downtown and you're hanging out there, they've got just live bands and they play at certain times and you can kind of like run from bar to bar and check out all these like new acts that are out there. And middle of summer, we've got a rooftop happy hour that we're going to be doing. I think it's at like the Noel Hotel or like Rare Bird or something up there, which like I can't wait to just overlook and kind of be a part of the community. And, I really like the thoughts that you had around some of the presidential candidates too. It's kind of like, hey, come and meet these people, right? Come and see the type of people that, are supporting you or could potentially support you. Cause I mean, I know over the years, going to your conferences and the Bitcoin conferences, a lot of times I just go around and talk to people that were allowed at some of the shows and, they're like, oh, I don't even work in the industry. They're like, I just love this vibe of like the people. Right. And like, I remember going back to conferences back a long time ago in the day. And my co-founder and I, we'd always look around and you'd see like, some guy in like a, perfect black suit. And then you'd see, some guy wearing like a cowboy hat and like no shirt on or something. And like, you just see all this mix of like, what in the world do all these people have in common? Like, why are they here? Right. And now it's kind of like we realize it's that little sovereign individual. It's that person that kind of questions a little bit that, is like, hey, there's some other answers out there around the way that money should work. And, like people talking about like the Federal Reserve and printing money, like that would never, like when I came out of school, like 2008, I remember talking about finance, like people were just oblivious. And now it's such a part of the forefront. And I really think that we have like Bitcoin to thank for that and just kind of bringing this awareness. So, kudos to you guys to bringing those people together. And then that's a great point about the driving distance. Like I didn't really think about that with like Miami. It's like, if you're in like Tallahassee, like you can't even make the drive, like
exactly.
Like that is so far. But like if you're in Indianapolis or Atlanta or, Southern Illinois and those places or Louisville, like you can really get there pretty quick and you're closer to DC. So really amazing stuff.
Totally.
Man.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that we kind of like to say too is Bitcoin isn't just for the coastal elites. It's for the middle America. It's for flyover country too. And it's not for just the country clubs. It's also for the country farms. And so, you want to signal that with how you do it. And sometimes it's just easy to go to, an LA, New York, Miami, just go to kind of like one of those hubs and collect from the local area. But the Bitcoiners in the US are all over. And to your point too, like, they come from many different walks of life. Like, you see people in suits at our conference, you see people in cowboy hats with no shirts still. And you see everything in between.
That's the fun part.
It is. And like some people are there. Some people are there to separate money from state. Some people are there to create a money that cannot discriminate based on sex, gender, ideology, anything, right? Some people are there because the number goes up and they have fun with it. Some people are there because they're hardcore technical developers that want to learn the latest in cryptography, solutions and solving, hypothetical computer problems with, Byzantine general type stuff. Like there's just so many reasons to engage with Bitcoin, and so we try to be something for everybody. And truly, it attracts a wide swath of people who come to the event. So that is part of the fun part is like you never really know who you're going to meet at a Bitcoin conference.
Yeah. And are you going to treat this like announcing like the next US Open in golf or something? Like, do you guys know the next 2 years where you're going to be located yet? Or are you already noodling that a little bit?
Yeah, we'll have an announcement at the conference for sure.
Cool. It's exciting. Yeah, I like
We're
how you guys
planning
do
on
that.
it.
Like that you already know the next year when you're there. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. Like, did you always think you'd be running the Bitcoin conference growing up? Like how did you kind of like stumble into this? Like what makes you passionate about bringing people together at the conference? Maybe tell me a little bit about your history.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first thing is like through the years, these conversations have become a little weird. I started out as like one of the young guys, right? Fresh out of college, and so I just have to like take myself out sometimes of that. Like I'm still one of the young kids of the industry. I'm really not anymore. I'm still in my 20s, but just barely. And we've got kids at our company now that are college dropouts or still in high school, or just graduated high school that are interning and helping. And so we've got truly much younger people than me by a decade or more now, so it's kind of crazy. But did I think I was going to be running the Bitcoin conference? Absolutely not. I went to Alabama, Roll Tide, and I studied chemical engineering there. And I was planning to be a master brewer. And I had a job with Anheuser-Busch. All this stuff, full kind of life trajectory set out. And while I was at Alabama my senior year, this guy named David Bailey came down to the university and gave a talk. And it was a fireside between him and this guy who was a New York Times journalist. And the topic was truth and whether truth can still exist in a Trump world. And this was in early 2017. So, within the first few months of Trump's, first administration, the whole media is ablaze, like you gotta take yourself back to that world. Yeah. Right. And like personally, I come from like a very progressive, very liberal background. Right. And so I was ready to sit down and cheer on this New York Times reporter as he talked about like how terrible it's been to see the undermining of like our institutions. And I listened to this David Bailey guy basically just throw everything to the wind. I mean, it was like I will never be able to really encapsulate like that moment where I basically like my entire worldview shattered. And instead of the like, oh, this was just a mistake and this is an aberration, this isn't the trend, like the New York Times is forever the bastion of truth and we must uphold it. He was basically like, the New York Times is dead. The internet is democratizing information, and either you adapt or you're done. And I run a media startup, and we focus on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is using the same tools of democratization as what's coming for the media industry. And either you adopt the new technology or you're done. Like it's over. And the New York Times said that Trump wouldn't win, and Trump won. And you guys have yet to reconcile that. And people on the outside, people with smaller media companies saw it coming from a mile away. Why didn't you see it coming? And it was like a holy cow, like this is just a completely different like worldview. I had never heard these ideas even be spoken, in this way. To me, it was always like like that Simpsons meme, like, no, it's the kids who are wrong, you know, like,
Yeah.
truly it shattered my worldview. And so I talked to him afterwards, and I was like, hey, everything you said is just fascinating to me. I want to learn more. I don't know what this Bitcoin thing is. I want to learn more about that too. And he was like, well, just come on, you know, we're in Nashville. And I was like, I'm from Nashville. So I got a free summer, you know, maybe I can move some boxes around. And so I did. I started at the company organizing our magazine closet, and you know, the rest is history. Now I run our biggest revenue line. You know, I run a 40-person team, and you know, we host the biggest conference, the biggest party in the world for Bitcoin. So a lot of
I
fun.
love that. It's like the proverbial mailroom, basically getting started and working your way up. What do you think it
Truly.
was that you kind of felt there in that conversation? Was it more, it seemed like Bitcoin was like a smaller piece of that. It seemed like it was more like, wow, like you need to adapt and you need to change, and things change rapidly. And if you're not moving, I think like a lot of kids like myself, even coming out of school, it was kind of like we were, even though it's like, because we, all of our parents used to kind of say, hey, get a good job. And like even our grandparents' generation, it was like 40 years in pensions. Like that's not that many generations ago that people would like
Mhm.
go be an accountant for 45 years for the same company and have a stable job and like know that that's the way that the world worked. And like very quickly, 2 generations later, it's like, things change rapidly. And like the really quality entrepreneurs from even, 50 years ago, I had a great grandfather would be like, he was like, always like reinvent yourself every 5 years, and this is
Mhm.
coming from like someone that like owned airports, that was like a doctor and like testing medical equipment in like low Earth orbit, like all these crazy things. And it's like,
Cool.
do you think that's kind of the lesson you got, was like reinvention, and like you need to adapt and change? And like, how has that kind of changed your perception from then until now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Like I would say, for sure, when I started working in the industry, it was not about Bitcoin for me. You know, now David was always about Bitcoin, right? But for me, you know, I got in thinking, wow, this blockchain technology, there's so many applications. We're like, so many industries are going to be disrupted by this, and that was like the state of most people's opinion, I would say, at the time. Sure, you know, I'm sure there's probably a lot of people now who would say, oh, back in 2017 I knew that there was, you know, never going to be a use case outside of Bitcoin, you know, like, at the time there were very few people who were actively saying, oh, it was just Bitcoin for, and everything else is never going to work, you know? And so it was truly like I was drawn in by all of these possibilities of, what does a world disrupted by the internet look like? And that, like, I was bought in on the idea that like we had just seen the beginning of it. Social media was just starting to disrupt the news. And that was like one of the first really big applications where I think you could argue that the internet had truly disrupted an industry. And so, you know, like, only through the years and really starting to get into, let's say, 2018, 2019, did I come to appreciate that we were onto something much bigger than just the internet disrupting industries. We had created a global digital sound money that could completely change the way the world works in general. And money disrupts every industry. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
industry you are, you touch money. And so, you know, if you can change the money, if you can fix the money, you can change the world. And so that is how, I guess, my priority, my view of the space evolved throughout the time that I've been working here. And it's how, you know, we as a company really refocused on Bitcoin, was through that kind of like, if we're going to put all of our chips on the table, if we're going to place our bet on what in this entire industry is worth going bankrupt over, is worth like truly dying on the hill of, we believe that this deserves our full undivided attention and focus, what is it? It's Bitcoin. And so why don't we put our money where our mouth is and just go all in on Bitcoin, and ignore everything else, not because we don't believe it's possible, not because we don't believe there's value there, you know, but because we believe in Bitcoin, and it should be on us to make Bitcoin a reality. And it is that simple. And so, I'd say you can see the dividends from that sort of conviction and bet that we placed even today.
Yeah, you can feel that just in the way you're talking about it. And, so question about the conference. Let's talk a little bit about what to expect there. If I'm a first time, Bitcoin conference, like you said, like I'm driving in, like I've got tickets for the first time, how do I, as a first time person, come in and, what do I need to do to get the most out of the experience and really feel like I had a great time and I was part of what was going on?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say make sure you just show up. Like it's so easy to basically sit back and say, I don't know anyone. I'm not sure everything about the industry. I don't know that much about Bitcoin, or I know a lot about Bitcoin, but I don't see, what's in it for me to kind of get so involved in it. Question that assumption and truly just show up, and you'll be amazed at what you see. From that standpoint, just get off your butt, right? First, then it becomes like a question of, well, how do I maximize my experience? And I would say first and foremost, come ready to meet people. If you can join the Telegram, if you can join, some of the just not even, we don't even control them, sort of Telegram groups that spring up around it. Join the conversation on Twitter, get involved and get engaged. Reach out to us if you have questions. First of all, we've got a full team that just responds to questions all day, which is fun. And just put yourself out there and meet people. And then once you start to meet people at the event, then you can start going down rabbit holes and going down paths where you're going to the booths, you're seeing the content, you're going to the after parties, you're going to the satellite events, you're going to the LunarCrush happy hour, on the rooftop, et cetera, et cetera. You can kind of, let's say, choose your own adventure as you go through the weekend. And but what I will say is, what you shouldn't do is you shouldn't show up. You shouldn't just sit down on a stage all day and, just listen to the content and then pack up and go home, afterwards. That is not, it's fine if that's what you want to do, but that is not getting the full experience of the event. Similarly, we'll put all the content online. We'll live stream the main stage. Every single talk will be on our YouTube. You have access to all the content. So go see the stuff that you want to learn about in that moment. You want to talk to the speaker afterwards and ask some questions, go to that content. But other than that, truly just immerse yourself in the people and the companies and the opportunities that are going to exist around the Bitcoin conference, because there is no other opportunity in the world to truly get involved with Bitcoin and the space and the people.
Yeah, well said. And yeah, you don't need to be working in the industry. You don't even necessarily have to have any Bitcoin. The people that are there are exciting. They're fun. You can learn very quickly from a couple of different people explaining Bitcoin in different ways. Everyone explains it different, right? And sometimes it's you just need that repetition, and you can just go and learn what it is. I remember when I had the aha moment of oh, there's all of these computers that are online at the same time running the same thing. And the more of those things that we have, wow, this is a major truth machine. And then bam, it just all clicked. But it was it took a bunch of different ways for people to explain it for me to really get it finally. But once you do and it's there, you're oh my God, this changes everything. And so it's but I didn't, the time wasn't working or doing anything. I was just learning. And so it's and it's also, you're never too late to the party, right? The party's just, it's such a nascent industry, right? And people are oh, it's 15 years old. It's nothing happened for 11 of those years, or maybe more, right? So it's it's really, in reality, it's only I would say 5 years. And so a lot of the leaders also in the industry are so accessible. Like you said, go talk to a speaker afterwards. That doesn't stay in all industries. You're not just going to go to a Google event and talk to the CEO, or go to CES and like talk to the head of like, Viacom or like Amazon. Like those things just don't happen. But in crypto, they do, right? And like
Totally.
in Bitcoin, they
Totally.
do. So it's like get yourself out there. Who are you personally excited to? I saw all the speaker list, great speaker list already. I'm sure you got some more that are coming out there. Who are you personally excited to meet and listen to, and why?
Yeah, so certainly there are some unannounced speakers that I'm very excited about that you'll be hearing about, I would say, over the next week. Outside of them, certainly I'm very honored that RFK is returning. So, many people may not know this, but RFK actually kind of made his presidential debut at the Bitcoin conference last year. It was his first true public campaign event. And so, everyone has kind of watched how he has progressed in his campaign, and truly, like, he's a force to be reckoned with in this election cycle. And his support of Bitcoin is a key component to why he's remained relevant and why he's continued to grow what he's doing. And so I'm honored to have him back. I think that he's going to articulate not only his belief in Bitcoin and what it can do for the world and why it's so important, but also maybe differentiate himself even between some of the other candidates and how they've treated Bitcoin and how they viewed Bitcoin and their level of sophistication of it and why he's on another level. So I'm very excited about that. And I think that it speaks volumes to how important he sees this industry. So that's exciting. And then I would also say, we'll have all of the major ETFs there. I'm very excited to hear how their view of Bitcoin has continued to evolve now that they have structured products around it. There's going to be quite a few companies and hedge funds who are now allocating to those ETFs who weren't allocated to Bitcoin ever before. I'm excited to hear from them, to meet them. And, it's funny, the political lens has certainly taken over a lot of the conversation around Bitcoin, but just 2 months ago, everything was all about the ETFs and
It's still the year
institutional
of the
adoption.
ETF.
Yeah. And so it's like, that's still a major freaking theme. And it's really, truly just getting started. I mean, I think there was this study that came out just earlier, maybe last week or a couple of days ago about the ETFs. 80 something percent of purchases have been individuals just wanting to allocate themselves. And so we haven't even seen the ETFs make their impact yet. And that makes sense. Like you think about how do people generally buy Bitcoin? They buy the top, right? The first time they buy it, they buy the top. And so we're a long way away from the top, which means that we haven't even seen the impact of the ETFs creating these new pipes for money to flow into Bitcoin yet. So they're, maybe taking a back seat right now, but they're going to regain the center of attention in short order, I'm sure. So that's exciting. I would say outside of that, it'll be good to see Michael Saylor. It'll be good to see a lot of the CEOs of the industry, certainly the mining CEOs. They've gone through quite the transformation over this past halving, going from going from 6.25 Bitcoin per block down to 3.125 is I think the cut of the century, let's say. And it's going to be the real the strong will survive, and the creative solutions to the challenges around mining are going to emerge over this cycle. And so I'm very excited to see how people tackle that. I think that there's a lot of conversations around AI and Bitcoin mining that are going to continue to persist, and there's going to be creative solutions built around that. So, this is a dynamic industry, and a lot of the times, like, we go into the conference with our talks planned and the speakers kind of scheduled, but until you listen to them, until you actually absorb the information that's being shared, you're flying blind into it. So I'm excited to just learn about the state of the industry and see what's going on and what ideas are out there. And maybe the last thing I'll say is in 2023, really, I guess it was Bitcoin 2022. We had a guy, Casey Rodomore, talk about like ordinal theory. And he created some like pre-ordinals, like some pre-ordinals inscribed sats that people still have in a workshop just randomly at the conference. And so it's like, it's one of those things where sometimes you don't even realize how big of a thing that happened until, you know, years later. And you're like, holy cow, you know, like that person got their start at our event. You know, like we've had this sounds like maybe a little bit cocky, but like a lot of the Bitcoin companies that exist today got their start at the Bitcoin conference. You know, they found their first co-founder, they found their first investor. And so, you know, sometimes the most fun thing to look forward to is to look back in 2 or 3 years and truly be able to measure the impact of what this event has done for Bitcoin that year. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just excited. I'm just excited.
So well said. And the industry is so international as well. You know, if you're like a young person coming out of college and, you know, you say, you know, I've always wanted to work internationally, and you think to yourself, oh, I need to go get a job at like JP Morgan, and then maybe one day I get to fly to Singapore and like do a little bit of work. It's like, you know, I'm auditing or something. It's like, if you come work in this industry, you're instantly catapulted into an international industry and get to work with people all over the world. And I think that the reason that a lot of companies are started at these conferences is because we're also remote in this industry as well, that we are not in offices. The atoms aren't moving as fast together. And so when we all get together at these conferences, the atoms are moving like crazy because we haven't seen, we have all this pent up energy. And so deals are made and new jobs are found, and you get to talk to people, you know, in real time. And I think we've become so good at understanding, you know, whether or not someone's going to be a good fit for our company. If you talk to them right there, it's like, hey, do you want a job? Like, I've done that, you know, at these conferences, is because you meet people and like, oh, you're doing this and this and this. I didn't know that. And you're just at this random party. So that's also like, it's a job finding opportunity for people that have wanted to come in, which is great. I know we got a minute left, and a couple minutes left. And that was going to be my next question about kind of the narrative around like building on Bitcoin. Right. And that's kind of like a big narrative this year as well. And there's, you know, there's a lot of, you know, people like Casey obviously building out like originally BRC20s and now runes, and that whole launch around the halving. And like, you know, I could probably pull up some really awesome social stats showing, you know, a huge spike in runes and then down, but now it's building, right? And it's a really awesome, fun narrative. And so maybe just like your thoughts a little bit about that kind of narrative around the ecosystem, because we didn't really have that. We kind of had that last year a little bit with inscriptions coming, but this is the first year where it's like, you know, like you said, now we got bankers with Wall Street, and then we got building on Bitcoin too.
100%. Yeah. And sorry I rambled so long, because this is like a huge topic in and of itself. But you know, what I'll say is there are certain challenges that exist in Bitcoin where, you know, it has to complete this challenge, let's say, in order for it to continue to prove that this is a long-term viable solution for the world. And one of those is the fact that there's a halving every 4 years, and which means every 4 years, the mining reward cuts in half, or at least in terms of new Bitcoin that are minted, which means that every 4 years, unless there is a, you know, notable appreciation in the price, or transaction fees start to really kick in and become a major part of the subsidy for miners, then you have a pressure to actually decrease the hash rate that is introduced. And if you decrease the hash rate, then you introduce like you know, the potential for you know, bad actors to have cheap access to ASICs, and you know, it starts to raise doubts, let's say, about the security of the network. Now, I think that you can have a lot of different answers to that. But one answer that I find really interesting is, can we build out more on-chain use cases for Bitcoin from a data layer? And that's where I ultimately see the building on Bitcoin conversation truly intersecting in an interesting and valuable way. Is you know, these assets that are built on Bitcoin, the BRC20s, the runes, et cetera, the ordinals, you don't buy those on an exchange. You buy them on Bitcoin. They're built on Bitcoin. Like, sure, you can use an exchange, but ultimately, if you're going to own that in your wallet, that is an on-chain transaction that has to happen. And that introduces fee pressure, and that introduces on-chain activity. and that introduces incentives to miners, and that creates a vibrant security budget and ecosystem for Bitcoin. And so, I'm very excited by the introduction of some of these what I call like Bitcoin native assets. Not because I've seen some killer like, oh, this is the thing that's going to be valuable, but it's like here we have a framework by which you can start to implement ideas, and maybe valuable ideas will be created. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. And certainly, it's brought a ton of developer activity to Bitcoin. There's so much being built on Bitcoin. There's so many developers who had left and gone to Ethereum or Solana or these other chains that are coming back to Bitcoin because the opportunity to build on Bitcoin is there. And ultimately, Bitcoin is the most liquid, the most decentralized, has the most users, has the most security. Like, it is the chain you want to be building creative new solutions on top of. And so the fact that now the activity is finally coming to Bitcoin is one of the biggest trends of the entire industry. I'm super excited about it. And certainly there's going to be a lot of conversations at the conference about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like if you're in the industry and you can be building on it, like why would you be building on Bitcoin? Like we're sending it's going to be a fun thing, but we inscribed a private key onto the back of a lunar lander that's going up on a SpaceX rocket, potentially at the end of November. And it was like, well, what are you going to put? What are you going to put on it? We call it Nakamoto 1. It's Nakamoto first mission. It's going to be epic, but it was like, what are you going to send up there? Right. It's like, am I going to send like, sure, I guess you can send some Dogecoin, but it's like, obviously we're going to put Bitcoin on the moon. So it's like, we're going to send, we did do an NFT run, but we're also putting our own Bitcoin. So we are going to put a Bitcoin on the South Pole of the moon, and it'll sit there and it's going to be a treasure chest. And so we've released, the private keys or not the private key, we released the public key, but no one's seen the private key. Like we did this whole cool inscription process, and then we destroyed the computer, and now it's like on this thing. But it's like, we want to inspire that next generation to like, hey, go get this. And if people send their Bitcoin for fun up there or whatever else up there, at some point, there's going to be more money on the moon than it is cost to go get it. So it's going to be a really fun experiment over the next like couple of years.
100%. You've created a sunken treasure on the moon that, eventually it will be worth it to go gather it. I mean, that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
But you got to send Bitcoin. It's like, why? I'm not going to send. Sure, we can send other stuff, but it's like you want to send the thing with longevity. You want to send the truth machine that we're all working towards, and it just kind of makes sense also with like developers. It's like, hey, if I can kind of build with a token like runes, then maybe why wouldn't I do that, right? Like, why wouldn't I be a part of it? So I think we're just seeing it is a true renaissance when it comes to kind of building and coming back to Bitcoin for some people. So I think this is going to be an amazing conference, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, no. And we're so early, like, truly, the inscriptions thing really took off last year. Runes just started at the halving. It's like a month ago, or sorry, 2 months ago now, so we're so early into what can be built. And yeah, like there's a lot to be explored there for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, Brandon Green, man, you rock. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for being here. Maybe just tell everyone, like, how do they go find you guys? How do they get signed up? What do tickets look like right now? How do people get involved and get to the conference?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely go to b.tc/conference and, get your ticket. Like, check out the website, see if this is something you want to be, checking out. But all I can tell you is hotels are booking very quickly. The tickets are flying, and there's a lot of anticipation for what we're about to announce. And so, if we are successful in what we're doing, then the world's about to change. And like, we're super excited for what we're building, and you're not going to want to miss it. You will remember this the rest of your life. If we are successful, you will remember this conference for the rest of your life. So do not miss out.
I got chills now, man. You're getting me excited. I love it. Awesome, man. Well, thank you. I'll talk to you backstage. Everyone out there listening, thank you so much for listening. We got Monty Greenspan coming on next week. Do not forget to set your calendar. It's going to be Thursday next week, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Brandon Green.